A burning question heading into the regular season is whether or not head coach Joe Mazzulla will be ready to lead the Boston Celtics to their number 18 banner this season. What's going on, everybody? Welcome into Celtics Today. I am your host, Allie Barefoot. Producer Smitty is always to my left. And the reason why this is now just coming up is because Joe Mazzulla did recently speak to Jay King with The Athletic and basically told him that his approach to this season has been different than last year because now he's a full-time head coach. If you guys do remember, he was the interim head coach heading into last season. He was announced in September of 2022, just days before the training camp started. Then he moved on to permanent head coach in February 2023, and he did go 57 in 2023. Last season, he led the team to the Eastern Conference Finals, Game 7, where they did ultimately lose to the Miami Heat. So Mazzulla's not stupid. He knew that his job wasn't always guaranteed. He knew he had something to prove. But when you get dealt a situation the way that Mazzulla did last year, you don't really get to establish the team as your own. Of course, they're going to have different coaching styles than Ime Udoka did, and I know Joe Mazzulla has been a coach in the league for a while, so it's different when it's finally your team, because this season, he was announced in February, like I said, as the head coach, so we finally got to experience a pretty hectic offseason with the Boston Celtics. Not only did he acquire Kristaps Porzingis, but he also signed Jrue Holiday just a few weeks ago, so now he's finally getting to have a handle on what could possibly be his full first season. If you believe in Joe Mazzulla as a head coach, like this video. If not, comment why. I want to know why you guys don't have full faith in Joe Mazzulla. I'm pretty much on the Mazzulla board. I actually went to a wedding this past weekend with a guy that went to West Virginia, which is, of course, his alma mater, and we went in on how we think Joe Mazzulla could be the right fit for the Celtics because Al Horford, the veteran Al Horford, even commented on this article, and he said, in my opinion, now he's more comfortable. I believe last year he managed it as well as you possibly can do it. I felt like he did a great job last year, and I think that this year it's just him putting his imprint on the team with how he wants things. We just said that. Mazzulla didn't get the team that he wanted last year. Of course, he had great assets, but he didn't get to craft it in the way that Mazzulla can craft a team because he called last season survival mode. Just take it day by day, game by game. And you have to when you are dealt the cards that Joe Mazzulla was dealt. But Al Horford said that he applauds him for what he did last season and is excited to see what he can do this season. He continued his quote saying, "Here is just completely different. How it feels, how it looks. Obviously, it was good before, but it's very clear that he has put his imprint on how he wanted things to be. We had a good culture, but I think that he is really setting the tone on the details and the things that he expects and that he wants in every facet of what we do." So that's pretty much the message that Joe Mazzulla is giving his team right now. New team, new culture, same goal, which is always, until they reach banner 18, that goal is going to be banner 18 until you can hit banner 19. So now that Joe Mazzulla finally has the reins on his team, he's going to day-to-day improvement because Mazzulla emphasized that the Celtics focus too much on the end goal and not improvising enough. And I don't blame him because you're trying to get ahead of yourself here. Even now, everybody's talking about what the Eastern Conference Finals are going to look like next to the Milwaukee Bucks. We're not even in the regular season now. So now that he got to practice with these guys at the Auerbach Center all offseason, he actually did go make some workouts with a few players. He's now kind of imprinting his own coaching style on these guys and kind of shifting the focus as to, let's bring in some players that have won this before. Let them help me out. Let them show the recent guys what it's like to win banner 18. But coming up, I want to talk about Mazzulla's improvement and even more, what his new culture truly does mean for the Boston Celtics. But in the meantime, check out Prize Picks. It is our sponsor for Celtics Today. It's my daily fantasy sports app. It's so easy to use. All you have to do is pick more or less on a player's projected stats, and you can win up to 25 times your money on any entry. You can put your entries in for NBA preseason, you can do it ahead of the NBA regular season, or you can even do it right now for NFL going on. Of course, I had to take some stats for Jaylen Brown, Jayson Tatum, and Peyton Pritchard ahead of tonight's preseason game against the 76ers, and I did take them all to have more. I took Jayson Tatum having more than 17.5 points, Jaylen Brown more than 16.5 points, and Peyton Pritchard with his fiery threes more than 15.5 points. If you want to make these picks or any of your own, all you have to do is go to prizepicks.com/CLNS. Use promo code CLNS, and you can get a first-time deposit match up to $100. Watch yourself win some money in real time. Now let's talk about the changes that Mazzulla has actually made. Not just on the culture side, but more actually on paper side. He did adjust his coaching staff, which is a pretty big move in Mazzulla's eyes. So when he shook up the staff, he added Sam Cassell, Phil Pressey, and he made Charles Lee the head assistant coach. You look at Cassell and Pressey, they're two former Celtics. They've been in this organization before. They know what it's like to win, especially Cassell, who was a part of the 08 championship team. And Charles Lee knows what it's like to win. He's highly respected around the league, and he also has some hardware in his jewelry with the Milwaukee Bucks 3 years ago. He was a part of that organization. So you just added 2 to 3 champions onto your coaching staff, which is going to help Joe Mazzulla in the long run, because while we're pulling for Joe to succeed, we know he can't do it alone. Hiring a former Celtics champions makes his job easier. He even sent out an email to former players, even if they're not on the payroll. He said, come down to training camp, come to practice, show us what you guys do. We saw it with Paul Pierce, so we know that he wants the entire Boston Celtics franchise to be a part of this possible winning season. In the day-to-day, has more structure. There's more routine when it comes to working out. Joe Mazzulla and Brad Stevens went to go visit players this offseason during their workouts because they wanted to see where they were at, even when they weren't in Boston. None other than Sam Hauser told The Athletic. He said, honestly, it's just the whole structure of the day is just a little bit different. It's more of what I think he envisioned. He was kind of just thrust into the head coaching job last year, so he didn't have a chance to sort of establish what he wanted to do in the month leading up to training camp. So things like lift, pre-practice work, the pre-practice group work, getting our reads in, our defensive reads, our offensive reads, learning the new terminology that we've been putting in. So all of that, I think, is accompanying what he's trying to preach to us this year. Like we said, when it's not your team, it's very hard to establish any kind of routine. I know the minute I start something new, it takes me a while to get a new routine. So the fact that Joe Mazzulla could do this last season, but now we can do it even more this year, it's almost like, crazy idea here, Smitty, that coaches need time to prepare for the upcoming season. And the fact that he was thrown into this days before training camp last year and still took the Celtics to the Eastern Conference Finals Game 7, I can only wait to see what Joe Mazzulla can do with a full year under his belt. Mazzulla seems like a pretty organized guy. He's got his day-to-day routines and the way he wants to run the team. He can spend more time on the court coaching. We saw it a little bit in preseason. He's already calling coaches challenges in the second game of the preseason. This guy means business. He's ready to win. Even in the preseason, we see him fully verbalizing his cues to the players, and you've got some great players on your team to work with. Joe Mazzulla agrees. So when he talked to Jay King at The Athletic, he said, I think just like being on the court every day, you have a tendency as a head coach to get stuck in your office, sometimes because you're worried about the next game plan or the next thing like that. But getting back to being on the court early and getting your meetings and stuff out of the way so you can be out there. So there's another reason why I felt a little more comfortable, because that's where I was at my best as an assistant, was being down there with the guys. I don't blame him. He saw the behind the scenes when he was behind Ime Udoka as an assistant coach. But yes, now when they lose, his name will now be on the headlines. That's kind of the job you get when you take the head coaching gig. But I think he's ready for that challenge. I think he's ready to take the blame if they win or lose the Banner 18 NBA Finals this year, if they do make it. Because Mazzulla's a basketball guy. He knows how this works. You're going to win some, you're going to lose some. But ultimately, what happens starts on that court. And that's where Mazzulla wants to be. He played at West Virginia. He's been a family of hoopers his entire life because he actually played 5 years at West Virginia. His father also played at Bryant, and he coached high school girls basketball for 22 years. My dad was also a coach. I know what that's like being around the sport day in and day out. And his brother also played at George Washington and Vermont, so you know the Mazzullas are hooping. So I have complete faith in Joe Mazzulla. Do you guys think Joe Mazzulla can lead the Celtics to banner 18? Type Y for yes, type N for no. I'm going yes. I want Joe Mazzulla in our corner. Yes, he has his flaws, just like every other coach. But last season, when all the other coaches got thrown around at the end of the year, I'm glad the Celtics kept Mazzulla. I think this will be his year. And even if it's not, we want to make sure that you guys subscribe to this channel because we're going to be updating you on every single game, all the news, all the rumors, including what Joe Mazzulla is doing in the offseason, in the regular season, and in the postseason. So go on ahead and hit that subscribe button for me.